UK insolvency, if you do it wrong, it can cost you everything. It can cost you your home. It can cost you your sanity, your peace of mind.
Yeah, your marriage.
And people don't realise is once they've made that decision and they've signed on that dotted line and they've appointed a liquidator, it's almost impossible to get rid of them.
Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma, the founder, CEO, and all the rest of it of RecTools.io. You know RecTools by now. It's the largest whole-of-market directory of recruitment suppliers into your recruitment business or your talent acquisition team. Thank you for tuning in once again. RecTalk, because of you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, and all the things that you guys do, is officially the largest podcasting channel on YouTube within the recruitment space, and also is a top 15% Spotify podcast. So thank you for that. My guest today, if you recognise him, it's probably not a good thing, but it's someone who I was really keen to get on. Didn't think I could make it happen, and I'm glad that he's made the journey down to Coventry today. It's Chris Worden from Director First. You'll know him from YouTube videos and blogs and things like that. If you've been in the unfortunate situation where you're looking at a business insolvency and worried about things like HMRC bills or corporation tax bills or your PAYE bills or bounce back loans and all the rest of it. So, Chris, first of all, mate, really appreciate you making the journey down.
You're welcome, mate. Thanks for asking me.
No, mate, honestly, real pleasure. I'm really looking forward to kind of digging into this one. So let's start by just give us a bit of background about kind of, for those who don't know who you are, what is Director First? What do you guys do? What's your background? And kind of we'll move out from there.
Cool. So I have been for many, many years now, I've been supporting UK directors with business rescue, turnaround, insolvency. Director First Insolvency is a advisory for UK directors who are facing financial difficulties, and we get hundreds and hundreds of inquiries every month. Some of them will be, I can't pay my VAT and my corporation tax. We're getting a bit of creditor pressure, and we just assist them in what they can do and what they can't do. And obviously, in amongst all those inquiries, we have business owners that have to restructure, that have to start again. Sadly, it's the end of the road. Where we're a little bit different to most firms in our space is our advice is tailored to the director, and actually saying, listen, lots of insolvencies end up with problems for the director. It's because the director doesn't know what questions to ask. So that's
or almost what path they're being led down, right? Because in that mind, at that point, they're still in the mindset of either business rescue or, I've got to put the people first, or my creditors first, or my customers first. Whereas actually, what ends up happening then is that they end up taking the brunt of things that, that could have maybe been turned around or written off or whatever. Yeah,
I mean, we've been very disruptive in this space, and I think there are a few businesses that copy a little bit about what I do now, and you know what, I'm cool with that, because there needs to be more people out there to advise directors of what they can and can't do, because it is a minefield. If you do it wrong, it can cost you everything. It can cost you your home. It can cost you your sanity, your peace of mind.
Yeah, your marriage.
And people don't realise is once they've made that decision and they've signed on that dotted line and they've appointed a liquidator, it's almost impossible to get rid of them. It's a massive decision. So, and I fell into this. If you want me to tell you a bit about how I got here, because I didn't go to university to study insolvency. I'm not an accountant that had a change of heart. I'm from a council estate in the north of England. And what happened with me, I've been, I've run my own businesses for years and years, and I found myself staring insolvency in the face probably about 10 years ago now. And I had a good little business. I wasn't I was no Alan Sugar, but I had a good business that made money. Yeah. I employed friends, family, and we were going great guns. And what happened was, the government changed the goalposts on this. It was to do with renewable energy. And overnight, our business model collapsed. And we had to give back deposits. We had quite a large amount of orders that cancelled. And believe we'd have actually got through that. But it was a few weeks later, and it was just before Christmas, we realised we'd been... I mean, I can laugh about it now. We realised the first ever introduction to insolvency for me was realising someone had liquidated owing us 200,000 quid. And it's like, ouch.
Right, yeah.
And
God,
like, I'm fairly streetwise, me. I'm not an idiot, despite what some people may say. You know.
Yeah. No, but we have to be when we grow up. When you grow up in the kind of worlds that we come from, you have to be. You learn things a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
And you figure out who can like swindle things and like you figure out ways around things because people around you are constantly doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah. And that's what I did. I thought I'll figure this out.
Yeah.
And I went out there, and I like anything in life, I'm like, I'll figure this out. I'll get through it. And I've gone on all the internet. I've gone on the forums. I've spoken to these insolvency practitioners, and I'm like, they speak a language I don't understand. And, on the worst meetings I had I was spoken to like a criminal, like a naughty schoolboy, very unwelcoming. And you know what? Looking back, there was a couple that they just weren't telling me everything. I now know all the tricks. I know where the pitfalls are. And eventually this went on for a few months. Awful time of my life, because like, if I fall, no one caught me. If I fall today, no one catches me. Like you, I've got little kids, I've got a young family.
Yeah.
And I eventually got introduced to an insolvency practitioner, and I could talk to them, and they did educate me. And even them, there was a little bit of afters that we never told about. But on the back of it, I said, like, really, like, tongue-in-cheek, I think we could generate some work here. And I got introduced to another guy who used to generate work, and he taught me a lot, this guy. And we just went out there, really just messing about, thinking, well, we'll find the odd job. And then 2020 happened, and obviously I do these videos on insolvency, and people started to want to know about it. And now I would say we're one of the top generators of corporate insolvency work, and there's no one who has reviews like us. Like we
I was going to say, your Trustpilot speaks for itself. There's not, it's what, 4.9.
I think it's 5.
Or 5.
I think it's 5.
I was trying to be, because I was looking at it the other day, and it's not like 5-star reviews from like 10 people. It's hundreds and hundreds, and they're all saying the same thing. You saved my marriage, you saved my life, you talked me off a ledge. I didn't realise half the things that you've kind of covered off with me, and you've given me a new lease on life and that kind of thing. And that level of feedback is obviously that must be heartwarming, right? And makes you think like, yeah, we're doing the right thing.
Mate, we are really proud of what we do. And it's not just me; it's my team. Like my younger brother works for me. We have a really good team that is there to support. Listen, when people are going through that, because I've been there, you've been there, it's hard enough. Like I need somebody to put their arm around me and just be with me every step of the way. So listen.
Shake me when I need it, pat me on the back when I need it.
We can have them conversations with people sometimes.
I bet. But it's again, like and like from a very personal perspective. Absolutely, your videos and your insightful kind of like so the effort that you guys have put in steered me in a massive way, because I was sat there going, am I looking at bankruptcy now? Am I looking at like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And it was a handful of your videos, and I've kind of gone, right, I didn't think of that. That's an interesting point. And now I'm sat here staring at the a negotiation table now with 2 creditors who are absolutely pushing for bankruptcy and all the rest of it, and I'm sitting there going, I don't feel anywhere near as scared anymore because of the information that I've now learned, and a large part of that is from the content that you guys have put out there.
I appreciate that.
So let's talk about some kind of like let's do some myth busting. I think that'd be a good place to start, right?
Yeah.
You know, at what point should a business owner be going, things aren't very good, maybe I should reach out? Because on paper it would seem as though, okay, I can only really speak to you guys when, you know, all the doors are closed to me now. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that's not
no.
case.
And again, that is a misconception. I think the first misconception people have is, if I speak to that funny looking bold chap that I see on YouTube, my business is over. And that isn't the case either. Like, you know, a very small percentage of those hundreds of inquiries that we get a month actually go through an insolvency process. But I want to go a step back, really, is people have got to have accurate information. They've got to have accurate financial information so they can make better decisions. And with like the softwares that are available today, you know, QuickBooks Zero are the easiest ones, I think. There's no reason why you're not having a set of management accounts on a monthly basis, or if not a monthly, at least a quarterly basis, that's telling you where your business is at. Whether you're a one-man band plumber or, I mean, I see really big businesses that don't have a grip on these financials. But when you start to struggle to pay your bills on time, something's happening. You know, insolvency is defined that there are 3 tests. One, the cash flow test is, can you pay your debts on time? If you're in a time to pay arrangement with HMRC, you're insolvent on a cash flow basis.
Yeah.
That isn't in itself a reason to close the door, because it might be, I fell behind on this VAT payment because I've not been paid there, or I had a big unforeseen expense and I've got a big job starting down the line.
Yeah, and it's almost better to have a time to pay with someone like the VAT man than it is to have with an external creditor, because of kind of how it's looked upon, right?
Yeah, I mean, the HMRC, they're too easy not to pay.
Yeah,
that's the problem, I think. It is like, okay, VAT quarter comes in, I just can't pay that. Yeah. I'll deal with it next.
And it's almost
month.
like they've heard it that many times. They're like, okay, and how long would you like to...
Exactly, but I don't even think sometimes they won't even ring you, you know, and it's like, when the you know what's hitting the fan...
You can swear, by the way.
Okay, cool. You know, when the shit's hitting the fan, it's like, right, I've got to pay this. People just, the paying who screams loudest, and the revenue don't. No. HMRC don't scream loud until they do. And generally, you're 3 VAT quarters behind. You've not paid your POE, you've not paid your corporate. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story about, I mean, this is how clueless I was about this stuff when I had my business that went into insolvency. And again, like, I feel like I want to defend myself. It's like it were a change of goalposts from the government. I owed a corporation tax bill, and I owed some VAT, and I was in dispute with the supplier.
The businesses fail.
Yeah, I get it.
It doesn't matter whether that was the case or whether it was actually I hired some shit people, or actually I just couldn't be asked anymore. I wasn't very good at sales, whatever it might be. The fact is, businesses fail. That's not a reflection on.
Yeah, most do.
It's not a reflection on somebody. And how many like successful business owners now, well, depending on how you define success anyway, but how many of those have had previously failed businesses?
I just want people to see how clueless. Like, so I owed the revenue, and one day they turned up at our office, and our office was on the first floor of this barn conversion.
Very nice.
Now, anyone with a brain would ring the HMRC and talk to them. I was that scared of them. Do you know what I did?
You did. I
got a lock put on the so they just couldn't come in. I thought, that'll sort it. You know, and that's where I was at.
That's upbringing again, though, isn't it? Look, I grew up in Coventry, in a bad part of Coventry, right? I grew up with kind of bailiffs on the street and that kind of thing. My mind would go to exactly that as well. These guys aren't here to play nice. They're not here to be like, listen, pal, let's come up with a plan here. These guys are here to size up the place and be like, how much is that worth? That's worth a pretty bob, and I want to take the whole lot. Because that's what we grew up around. So it's understandable why your reaction would be like, if I just lock the door and turn the lights off.
Out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, you know, and so I've been there, you know what I mean? I really have. And I empathise when people are going through this, and you've just got to, so back to the question is, when do you take advice?
Yeah.
When you can see there is a problem coming up, or you are in a problem and you cannot pay the VAT, you cannot pay your corporation tax, you are struggling to repay your C bills, there's too much month at the end of the money, you know, that like something's going wrong.
Yeah.
Like, is this business viable now? You know, do you know what I should have done back when I went insolvent? Is the minute that these government changed the goalpost, all the big players they literally shut the doors and they got rid of everyone. Like that day, sent everybody home. Now, I've read that much personal development, I'm dangerous with it, right? Because all that tells you is, I'll get through this.
Yeah.
I'll fight through this, you know. I'll write some goals, I'll write some affirmations, I'll do a gratitude list, and I'll get through this. And listen, I'm not knocking all that. It's good stuff. It is good stuff. But when it comes to this type of thing, that was dangerous for me. Because I'm looking at it, I'll come round, it'll get round, I'll turn this round.
Yeah, at what point does positive mental attitude and you know, that become delusion, right? And that it's funny you say that. That's where we were at as a recruitment business, because the fact of the matter is we ended up taking out a very large personally guaranteed loan because we'd convinced ourselves that we could turn this around. The fact of the matter was that fundamentally the business was not working. We were stretched too thin. We were doing all sorts of different things. There was a hole in the bucket that was leaking tons of water. Happened to be going straight into my business partner's bank account, but you know, at that time I didn't realise that. And somebody used the term when I was going through all of that stuff. Is I respect him a lot actually. A guy called Mark Kirsch, and he was like, "It sounds like you've got a zombie business. It's not dead. It's not alive. It's just a zombie.
Yeah,
you know, and you got to put it out of its misery. That's where you're at. You just stop running your zombie business." And annoyingly, if I would have reached out to somebody who knew what the fuck they were doing, they could have laid all of this out to me and gone, look, yes, you can take this and sign your PG, but in 12 months' time, the inevitable is happening. Now, in 12 months' time, all that's going to happen is you're going to be left with a bigger bill. Today, you're left with the embarrassment of closing your business down and letting your staff go. In 12 months' time, you're left with the embarrassment of closing your business down and letting your staff go, and not paying them, and risk losing a lot. So what do you want to do?
When it comes to investing personal funds into a business that's become insolvent, and again, you understand whether you're insolvent because you can't pay debts when you fall due. Liabilities are more than your assets. You are insolvent.
Yeah.
And I say to people, for you to put extra money in this, that's your money, that is your family's future, you have to be 1,000,000% that it's going to work. Because if you're not, either, like you say, where are the holes? Why is this business built up all that stuff? Okay, yes, we've had COVID. Yes, we've had the cost of living crisis. It's very difficult in the UK. Is your business no longer viable? Is it over? Or would this business be viable without the legacy debt? And so many people are like, I just don't want to let my business go. And I completely get it. I really do. Okay, but some really tough decisions need to be made when this starts to happen. And it's like, what's the goal here? Because if you carry on like it's going to get worse. There's going to be huge implications. Or do you use some type of insolvency process to shut that business down and start again? I mean, we're recruitment's this sector, isn't it? I've done loads of recruitment jobs.
I bet you have, yeah.
Over the last few years, and it's all very similar. There's no real, although there is a business there, it's generally a director who has a load of contacts and a team. Okay, There's not much contractual stuff in there.
No.
So
there's no stock to shift. There's no intellectual property. There's nothing short of... It's a people-based business, isn't it? Which can be started again under whatever...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there might be a debtor's ledger, money owed in. There might be a factoring company involved. But a pre-pack is where this business has... You've got to understand where's the holes in the bucket, because you don't want to do this and it happen again in 18 months' time. But if you can understand how the business has failed and, will version 2, can we stop those mistakes? Then you go through a process where you liquidate the business that has the debts. And legally, as long as, an independent valuation's done and you go through the proper processes, you can start a second company in the same sector and you get another chance at it. But people are so hung up on that first company, and like you say, you can get money if you're willing to put your house on the line. And people just... whenever you're signing a PG, just please, I think they should be taking advice at that stage.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't think enough is said about it, right? The lenders are... you can't blame the lenders. The lender's job is to lend, right? And yes, you could say, well, it's predatory lending or whatever, but then, subprime lending exists for exactly that reason. So, just writing on a bit of paper before you sign this, get legal advice, is probably not enough, because actually the lawyer who I've got and the solicitor who I've got, I'm working with at the minute to navigate this personal guarantee that I gave, he'd have given me a slap around the face and what are you thinking? No, you're not signing that. You know what I mean? And if I'd have actually gone to him and said, hey, it says I've got to get some legal advice, so here I am, he'd have said, what the fuck are you doing? No, absolutely not. Don't be fucking
We're desperate for the money, aren't we?
Yeah. Are we doing, is this a good business decision? Are you taking this money and you're going to invest it in something that's guaranteed to return? No. What you're doing is you're taking this money. It's nuts, right? If I said to you, oh, listen, I've got this box, and every time you put £100 in, £200 comes out. And you'd go, yeah, all right then, that sounds fair. Let me go and get £1,000 and see if it works with that. In fact, same box, I say to you, every time you put £100 in, sometimes you get £10 back, sometimes you get nothing back, and other times you get £100 back. You're not going to go, this sounds like a fucking surefire thing to do, let me do that.
I've got one at the moment, a job on, right? And I'm not going to name the factoring company, right? So this guy's desperate for Christmas, cash before Christmas. He signed up with a factoring company as a charge against the company, but he needs to go through a process. He should have never... I don't know how he's passed their underwriting. Anyway, so one of the things that you'll do quite regularly with recruitment companies is you'll change the factor. So you're putting the new factor in who will help collect out that ledger, and they will fund Newco. So I said, send me the agreement. And there's a guy that I've used, done it for years and years. I said, have a look at that for me. He's come back, he says, Chris, I can't do anything with that. He says, it's probably the worst agreement I've ever seen. It because this director thinks he signed a 3-month agreement. He's not. He signed a 12-month agreement with a 3-month break clause, right? So it's 15 months, and he only can give notice on one specific day. So it's going to cost him about 20 grand to get out of it, and it's like, and he's going, well, I says, you have said you've taken legal advice on this, and he hadn't, because he's desperate for the money. Because when we're backed into a corner, we do rash things. And I see that in insolvency a lot is, the walls are closing in. You ring someone up on Google. You ring the first insolvency person that you see. You think they're all the same, and they'll force you to act really quick. Now there are times where that needs to happen. Sorry,
that's all right.
I had a guy last night. He really needs to sign notices ASAP. But that is in the minority. Generally speaking, in insolvency, you want to be speaking to somebody, getting everything out on the table, getting some real advisory about what the options are, what are your problems, what are your goals as a director, can we use the insolvency tools to actually get you to where you want to get to in line with your director's duties. But again, it's all that high pressure stuff. If anyone's trying to force you into signing an engagement letter or they're asking for money up front, without doing any work, it's a big red flag for me just to go, you know what? Big decision. You have to get more than one opinion. Yeah. If someone rings me...
You get more than one quote on your bathroom.
Of course you would.
You get more than one quote for a new boiler. You're absolutely not going to go with the plumber that's like, pay me right now. Yeah. And you need to do it now. It's falling apart. You need to do it right now.
The deal's on the line till 5 o'clock today.
Yeah, I've got the boiler on the van. I'll do it now for you. Yeah. Like, that's not the guy you want to go with. But in business, we're like...
I think people are so scared about going in the confession box.
Yeah. And
it's like, I've done this a long time. I've spoken to thousands of directors, and it's all the same stuff in it. Yeah. Not many set out to intend to do this. No. It's like they've gone out with the best intentions of the world. We spoke about it before, don't we? Most business owners, and I was one of those business owners, I didn't know how to run a business.
Yeah.
I was all right at what I did, the getting, the working, but HR, accounting, VAT. I mean, a VAT bill would come. I go, another one.
Yeah. I just paid this.
Keep coming back. Yeah. Corporation tax. What do you mean? Yeah. I haven't made a profit. There's no money in the bank. And it's basic things like, if you have a service and you bill £1,000 plus VAT, the £200 that you have isn't yours. It needs to be put somewhere separate. And that's why I like Starling. I like Starling because you can. What I don't like about Starling is there's only one. You can't have other people accessing it. So, but what I do like is you can open a space up, and you get paid £1,000. You fire £200 into your VAT account, and of the £1,000 left, depending on what your business is like, gets advice of your accountant. But if you was to put £200 of that £1,000 into a tax account, you now know you've got £800 to play with, right? Because that other stuff isn't yours.
Yeah.
And it's the most basic thing that you can be doing to safeguard your business and, make sure you don't get any surprises.
It's funny you say that, yeah. As a recruitment business, we used to do that, right? So when it was just the two of us, we did exactly that. We used an incubator company who used to do our factoring as well, called 3R Finance, and 3R would have they would pay us margin only for starters, which was great, which meant that we would only ever spend what was ours. But also more importantly, they would keep the VAT in a VAT SOP account, and when it was the time to pay the VAT, they would release the money to us with the sole intention of, we're going to send this to you, but you need to send us proof that you've paid your VAT, because they didn't want the kind of fallout, right? But we liked that so much that actually then we were like, if we just put another 20% into another savings account, that covers any additional tax bill and all the rest of it. And hey, once we've... And that's probably overestimating, because in our mind it was like, that's probably overestimating.
Of course, yeah. You should have a bit left.
Because there'll be stuff that gets deducted off and whatever. And there's our bonus at the end of the year. There's that little tickler that we can pay ourselves. So we still get it. It's just, And then while we run it that way, things are sweet. Is when you start overcomplicating it and trying to get a bit too clever with it, or you trust somebody with the entire bank book, it becomes an issue. But the fact is, you can keep things in a very simple and easy to kind of manage way, right? Especially within something like recruitment, which is so it's not as transactional heavy as a grocery store or like a taxi driver or something like that, right? Where it's big invoices and there's not that many of them in recruitment, versus you're not dealing with thousands of transactions a day that you need to then kind of marry up and keep on top of.
I have a question for you. So obviously I've worked with a number of recruitment companies, and it always baffles me. How on earth do you guys plan? How do you plan your cash flow?
I can tell you from all of the people that I've spoken to over the kind of course of me running RecTools and RecTalk and everything else, most recruitment business owners have probably got, at best, 3 months runway in their business. Most of them are running on a month-to-month basis in terms of their cash flow. Because you can't plan. unless you're a contractor-heavy business, right? If you're a contractor-heavy business, okay, yeah, you've got temp to perm agreements or you've got temp agreements with your clients, and you can almost forecast every temp runner I've got out is going out for at least 8 weeks. So I know for 8 weeks I've got this revenue coming in. Mm-hmm. And that's on the proviso that that candidate doesn't leave, call in sick, die, have a family emergency or whatever. So it is almost impossible to, because that's almost kind of why the recruitment industry is so susceptible to those pestle changes, right? Little economical change or little government change in legislation, and these guys panic and they make mass redundancies, or they're like, fuck, what we're going to do, because it's hard. Yeah, it's almost impossible to accurately predict. My first quarter, I'm going to do this much revenue. My second quarter, I'm going to do this much revenue, because you just don't fucking know.
So sort of like following on from what we were saying before, if you get behind with the revenue, because one of the things that people need to be aware of is, listen, you'll be able to set a time to pay arrangement with HMRC, and I'll dive into that now, because there's people out there, they owe VAT, they owe corporation tax,
they don't even know what that is. Yeah, what the time to pay is. Yeah,
you've got to, all those debts that you owe HMRC, you have the opportunity to organise an extended time. It's called a time to pay arrangement, where you pay it over a period of time. Now, there are some eligibilities here, right? You've got to be able to pay it off in a period of time that they deem acceptable. Now, my advice to you is, do not agree to a time to pay arrangement that you cannot stick to, because if you default on it, you're going to go through the enforcement process.
Well, and you're fast tracking straight to there. Yeah,
exactly. If you've got a good compliance history, so your returns are on time, you've been going years and years, and for whatever reason you are behind, you can, in certain circumstances, get 3 years. In certain circumstances. If your compliance history is shocking, you don't put your returns in time, you've never paid a jot, you're not getting 3 years. They're going to want it in 6 months. Now, I think as a bare minimum, you'll always get 12 months. So, the question is, can I pay this over 12 months? If you can't, you need an insolvency advisor. You really need to look at your options. But if you can do, it gives you some breathing space. But you must be able to keep up to date with current. So let's say you're on a time to pay for VAT, PAYE and corporation tax. You've got to pay your PAYE that's due every month. You've got to pay your VAT that's due every quarter. You've got to pay your corporation tax. Because if you don't do, you go into basically breaches the time to pay arrangement, and you're back to square one again. So if you're in that time to pay arrangement, you get one agreed, you've got to be really tight with the money. You've got to understand that, again, we'll go back to that £1,000 plus VAT scenario. The 200 quid goes into a VAT account, and a 200 quid goes into some type of tax account for at the end of the year. Because I've seen businesses set up time to pay arrangements, they're getting through, they're paying the time to pay arrangements, and then they haven't got the money for the corporation tax. And again, the whole plan falls down.
But does that not create that? Look, if my VAT bill is 10 grand and I can't afford to pay it, so I've decided to request that time to pay, and then the quarter goes by and I've been paying my 800 quid a month that we've agreed with the HMRC, the quarter's gone and another 10 grand. Is it not creating this essence of, well, I'll just put that on time to pay as well, and I'll just keep putting things on time to pay because...
Well, you won't be able to. I mean, there are circumstances where you'll get away with it. That there is some... Listen, HMRC enforcement agents, let's get this out there. Most of them are really nice people.
Yeah.
They're literally just doing the job over the years. I've got to know them.
They just happen to work for the taxman.
Exactly, yeah. But they're decent enough people. And I think if they see that you are trying your best... I've had one, right? I mean, this is a horror story. Guy owed £1.6 million to HMRC. He's been wound up. He's got no hope of rescue. We got the call very late. We had a top insolvency lawyer speak to the HMRC, and they've just said no. Just said, we're getting this business is getting wound up. They wouldn't entertain a CVA, which is a company voluntary arrangement where you pay your debts over a period of time.
Yeah.
The HMRC enforcement agent had said to him, if you'd have rang, this guy could have put £500,000 down in 60 days because he had a lot of assets in his business. You know, wrongly, he basically used the HMRC money to pay down all the debt on his assets. And he could have refinanced the assets and got £500,000 to them in 60 days and pay the rest over 2 years. And he said no. They said no. You know, if you're that person who thinks, I'll deal with it next month, I'll deal with it next quarter.
Get a lock installed.
You're running you're running out of road.
Yeah.
If you speak to HMRC early and you tell them what's going on, you'll get a deal done. You will get a deal done. Now, if you're scared of speaking to the HMRC, speak to somebody like me, you know, give you a bit of guide. I mean, we do loads of free guidance on how to deal with HMRC. If you go into them with a plan, maybe a cash flow, really impress them and go, I've done a cash flow projection, because most people don't. And go, I know I'm behind on this one and I know I'm behind on that one. I'm fully up to date with my returns. This is my proposal to get this paid.
Yeah.
If it's a sensible proposal, you'll get a deal.
It's almost treating it's treating them like you would any other creditor, right? You've got a business loan and you're 3 months behind on that. Well, you're not just going to not answer the phone to them. You're going to go to them with a, listen, all I can afford at the minute for the next 6 months is interest only. So I propose I do that, and then I catch up. By this point, you'll be square again. You know what I mean?
I have an analogy. In a past life, I used to be a bit of a party animal, right? So on a Friday night, I'd go out for a pint at tea time. And as long as I saw, it was never a pint at tea time, but if I checked in with my missus on the hour every hour and I rolled home at whatever time it was, the consequences of that were much less than if I went out for a pint at tea time, dodged all the calls and rolled in at 3 a.m, right? You've just got to talk to people, you know, let them know where you're at. They're not to be scared, really HMRC. You've just got to be able to speak to them. Don't be worried about
Where do you think that fear of speaking to people like the HMRC comes from? Do you think it is an anxiety of they're going to mark me down as this person's a shit business owner, and you know what I mean? They're going to hold this against me in some sort of permanent record on my director file. Do you know what I mean? Is it that? Do you think?
Well, I would think. I mean, listen, we don't like authority, do we?
No.
Most of us don't.
No.
You know.
Yeah. Which is why we end up working for ourselves.
Yeah. I am unemployable, mate.
Yeah,
you know,
same. Yeah.
So I think it's quite deep rooted, isn't it? I mean, here's the. If you hear a bad story about an HMRC, and I've got, like, I could talk to you all day about horror stories, right? But that horror story ended up as a horror story because the director buried the head in the sand. Yeah. There's not enough people saying, you know what, I spoke to them and they were all right.
Yeah.
Because that's not newsworthy, is it? You know,
no.
I'm not. I mean, I will guarantee you, if you pick the phone up to the HMRC, you will be surprised.
Yeah.
You will be. It's the fear of picking the phone up to them. Again.
Yeah, it's funny because there's like commercial lenders and business lenders that do VAT loans.
I hate them.
Yeah, and in my head, I'm thinking, hang on a minute. If the HMRC can give you up to 3 years worth of grace, you know, but realistically on average 12 months, the fuck do you need to take out a loan for?
Well, them VAT loans, you're PGing them as well. I mean, who in the right... that, for me, if you are considering a VAT loan, stop.
Yeah.
Because...
I'm glad I brought that up then.
Why are you behind on the VAT? Okay, what is the reason? And again... For you to put your family's home on the line for a VAT payment, you need to be absolutely certain that this ship is getting back on track. And I've seen it. I've had cases where directors don't understand what options they've got. They don't. With HMRC, you've just got to keep them in the loop. And I'm not telling people not to pay HMRC. It's not what I'm saying now, right? If you are struggling to pay HMRC, that's when you take advice, you know. because they're ultimately the revenue are the number one issuer of winding up petitions.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that are coming down on you. And I've seen. I mean, I was on the phone to a lady this morning on the way down. She's a contractor and she's being wound up for 65 grand. Now, listen, 65 grand's a lot of money to me. I'm sure it is to you. But you know what's the revenue? They never used to wind people up for 65 grand. No. They really... there were a time, and I'm sure I'll be corrected on this, but in my view, if you were less than 100 grand, you didn't really have a... Eventually, it would come on top, but you had a bit of breathing space. So there's definitely a change in attitude from HMRC, and I've seen that over this last 12 to 18 months where... Because I would imagine they're skint.
Yeah.
You know, at COVID, they were saying, don't pay us, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll deal with it down the line.
Yeah. And guess what? Time's up.
Here we go. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? So in terms of then things like lending and sort of negotiating with creditors and stuff like that, what's the best way to do that you guys have found? Is it better to go through a specialist, or, you know, like say for example, you know, we've got the VAT man and we know, they can be navigated. But if I'm sat there with a loan, a C-bills, or a bounce back, or God forbid a PG with one of the more predatory lenders, what's the way to negotiate with them?
Well, let's pull them apart. Right?
Yeah.
Bounce back loans. Let's talk about it. Everyone's got a bounce back loan. Okay.
Yeah. If you've got limited business that qualified for a bounce back loan and you didn't take one, then you missed out.
Yeah. It was cheap money. Cheap money. So you've not bounced back. We're in January 2025. Let's go through the official options. Can't pay. You've got pay as you grow. Okay. Yeah. Pay as you grow is where you go on your banking app or your banking website, and you first of all you can restructure the loan from 6 years to 10 years. Okay. That'll bring your payments down by almost half. Obviously, all these pay as you grow options, they increase your overall debt, but it's peanuts. 2.5%. So that's option one. Option two is you have an interest. You literally can take a payment break for 6 months. So that's option two. A lot of people took that. Option three is you can go on interest only with the bounce back loan for 6 months at a time, and you can use that for 3 times during the term of the loan. There are lots of people who have exhausted all this, and they're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
The loan was ideal in the sense that you didn't have to personal guarantee it. The government will pay the bank if you default on it. It's not like the other loans that we're going to come on to. So if you can't pay it, you can't pay it.
Yeah.
Like literally you speak to the bank and you say, listen, I can't pay this. I can't pay this. And there's very little they can do about it. The bank's taken action against people they suspect of committing fraud.
Can they force a wind-up of your company? So because I've heard of cases, and this is just, when I say heard of, on like business forums and Reddit and stuff like that, where, you know, lender has forced a wind-up petition against me.
In theory, anyone can wind you up if you owe them money, right?
Yeah.
The only time that banks are winding up businesses right now who've took bounce back loans is if they suspect that business has committed fraud.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I believe, and it's again an opinion here, something's good. You know, like the zombie company analogy. Yeah. There's thousands of them that don't have the money to liquidate.
Yeah.
Like they're going to be charged $5,000 to liquidate a business.
Yeah.
They haven't got $5,000. They can't feed the bloody kids. You know, never mind fork out $5,000 to liquidate
just to
a business.
Pay for that, yeah.
So there's zombie companies that really need putting out the misery. And by the way, I want to put this out there. If anybody is telling you to strike a company off with a bounce back loan, do not listen to them, right? That is not an option. It is not an option.
You can't, yeah.
Now, the banks eventually, I believe, will have to start winding up these companies at scale because they've got to be put out of the misery. But if you can't pay your bounce back loan, you speak to the bank, you won't believe how nice they are. Like, literally, that's another thing. Oh, I don't want to speak to my bank because I'm scared. Yeah. If you tell them what's going on, they'll go for it. Well, what can you afford to pay? Now, some people who want to pay it back, they could offer a tenner a month and the bank would have to accept it. Okay? Now it's just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing, but they'll accept a tenner a month. If you cannot afford to pay anything back, you will go into default after 3 months, and the bank will give the debt to a company like Zinc Group or Moorcroft, or and these, would normally scare the life out of a director. Oh my gosh, I'm being pursued by debt collection companies. But all they can do is ring you, write to you, and email you. And when you speak to these people, they're really nice. You will get a deal. Either you'll get a deal with them and pay them a nominal amount over a period of time, or you might just say, listen, I can't pay anything. And if you do, if this is affecting your mental well-being, and I know it is for a lot of people because it did for me, they will take a real step back and leave you alone. And you can ask them to stop interest. Because when the company... Now, most people don't know this, but once the loan's gone into default, and I think it's 3 to 12 months, the bank have probably got the money back off the government, but they've not told you. So
this is just
So don't, with bounce back loans, if you've took it in the right manner, right? If you spent it in the right manner, I don't need to worry about it. I really don't,
That's where the issue is, isn't it? Because you had a lot of people who had kind of dormant businesses, claimed the full 50k that they could do, and then went and bought a car or a flat out in Spain or something like that with it, and then now they're like, okay, if there's an audit trail of that money, because it would have been paid into your business account. Now, if the audit trail shows that, okay, you bought some stock, or you invested it in marketing, and then you bought a bit of data here, and then you put it here, and then you bought this, and you helped your recruitment business with it, and then eventually things have come to an end. Fair, right? Fair. But if it's, hang on a minute, October 1st you got the 50k paid in, and October 7th you're at the Ferrari dealership putting a 50k deposit down.
Yeah,
that's a bit of a
you're in trouble. Yeah. And what people, I mean, you hear it all the time, don't you? Yeah, but me, because people will ring me and they'll tell me, and I say, listen, I don't judge, just tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And they'll tell me, and I say, mate, I can't help you. I says, I cannot help you. He says, well, I've been told that if I liquidate with this company, it'll go away.
I'll do that.
I says, yeah. I says, listen, well, why am I not taking your money?
Yeah.
I says, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go into insolvency, you're going to trigger an investigation, and you're in trouble. Now, my advice to him is just pay the bloody loan back. Just pay it back, because you've got headaches coming down the line. Yeah. So, if you've been honest with it, I want to dive into something. We spoke about it while we were grabbing a brew. And it's about people who took loans, bounce back loans, and they used it personally.
Yes.
Right?
So for a bit of context with that then, so I explicitly remember the government talking about the bounce back loans and implying that because directors didn't fall under the furlough thing, and there was that big push about directors kind of falling through the cracks, the implication was that, yes, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, you may use this money to top up your living expenses and to survive during this pandemic.
Yeah. So you could use that bounce back loan for the benefit of the business. Okay.
Right.
Now, if you are a small business and you need to pay your mortgage and feed your kids, for me,
that's the benefit of my business.
That is the benefit of the business, right? Okay. So the way you take money out of your business is the key here. So you can take salary, drawings in anticipation of dividends, or a combination of the two. Okay. Most directors will go, right, I've been advised to take £1,000 a month there or thereabouts. The rest I'll top it up with dividends. Now, mistake one, it's not a dividend yet. You're taking a draw in anticipation of profits at the end of the year, which can be declared as dividends. Now, if you've taken your bounce back loan in line with the year's previous salary, you've got no issues, no problem, right?
I've always paid myself this much, and therefore I use that money to
Here's
continue.
the problem, though, right? I said salary. Salary's through the payroll. Now, if a typical director, they take £1,000 a month salary, they take £3,000 a month as a drawing and at the end of the year, they hope they've made a profit. They'll declare a dividend. Okay. What happened for a lot of people is their revenues dropped after 2020. Okay. Some revenues fell off a cliff and never returned.
Yeah.
But that director has continued to take $4,000 a month, $3,000 a month of it as a drawing, right? They go and do their accounts at the end of the year and they've not made any profit. And if they've not made a profit, they can't take a dividend because a dividend is paid out of profits, right? So that $3,000 a month, I'm just... plucking figures here. That $3,000 a month, 12 months, 36 grand, has now become an illegal dividend. Now they're not going to prison, but they've got something called an overdrawn director's loan account. Now they're not criminals, they're not nasty people. I think they're poorly advised, right? It starts with financial information, guidance from an accountant, and I want to get onto that in a minute as well. But what these guys have done is they're not going to get in trouble for how they've spent the bounce back loan, but they've got another problem coming. They've got an overdrawn loan account. And in an insolvency scenario, you're going to be asked to pay that back by the insolvency practitioner. And that's a big problem for people because they're like, I didn't know about it. I literally didn't know about it.
But ignorance isn't an excuse, is it? And this is what I was told. Because, again, the insolvency of my recruitment business, my director's loan account was sat at 100k overdrawn. And I kick myself now because everything I know now, I would have gone back to little old panicked me in November 23 and gone, right, before you even have a chat with these insolvency people and start engaging with this process, go to the accountant and say, I want these reversing and I'll pay my PAYE equivalent. You know, because that's going to cost you a damn sight fucking less than the 100 grand they're going to come after you for.
Yeah, the only issue you've got there, though, is real-time information. You've got to submit your PAYE records on a monthly basis.
Okay.
I mean, it is the reality.
I suppose as it's going along, though, once you file those accounts, you know, like, because you don't just wake up one morning and we're like, I'm 100k overdrawn in my director's loan account.
No, see, it just built over years and it's easy.
So you'd expect, at some point, that conversation needs to be had with your accountant. Whether the accountant triggers that conversation or you do, you've got to say, listen, if this carries on the way, and well, actually, this brings it back to your original point. You need your management accounts in order because actually, if you're looking at it going, right, if this carries on in the way it's going in terms of the business, and your drawings continue where they are, you're going to be in a bit of a trouble. Well, a big fucking trouble at the end of this. We need to now move you to, if you want to carry on those drawings, that's fine. But you PAYE.
Go on salary, right? You go on the salary. The minute your revenue start dropping, and again, if you've got a profit and loss on a monthly, quarterly basis, you know if you're making profit or not, and you know how much you can take, right? You go on PAYE because you still need to still take money. You just can't take it in that money anymore. Because directors' loan accounts
pay the appropriate amount of tax.
They can cause people to lose their houses. Yes. And another question is if there's not enough profit in the business to take the income that you need, that's a red flag in itself, isn't it? What is going on? Do I need to go line by line in this profit and loss and go, I don't need that anymore. I need to get rid of that. I need to stop spending here. I don't need this member. Listen, these are all conversations to have, but you've got to cut your cloth accordingly when things are going ropey. Because what people don't understand is an overdrawn director's loan account is an asset of the business. A liquidator gets appointed, and they go, right, you owe that company 100 grand. How are you paying it? Because I'll make you bankrupt otherwise. Now here is where people need to be educated. A good insolvency firm, okay? I am one of those people. There are others, right? The first thing I will do once we've got into the nuts and bolts of what you owe, what do you want to be, what are the various options is, right, let's have a look. Have you got an overdrawn? What is going to cause you a problem in this insolvency, right? Okay, the biggest thing is an overdrawn loan account. Okay, where am I going to find that? Okay, let's have a look at your last set of accounts. Okay, they're 18 months out of date. They're not really worth the paper they're written on now. I want to know today. Give me a balance sheet.
Yeah. Give
me a balance sheet, Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, whatever. But it needs to be up to date. Now, if you haven't got zero QuickBooks or, whatever, we have to go back to your last set of accounts and go, right, well, my overdrawn director's loan account was 15 grand at that point, but I've been insolvent since that point. So how much drawings have I taken out of the business since those last set of accounts? So let's say they took 25 grand and, 12 of it is through the payroll. There is another 13,000 that's gone on that director's loan.
Yeah.
And now we've got a figure, and we understand, well, how much is this director's loan account? Right, how are you going to pay it back? Well, I can't pay it back. That's really common because the director has...
Well, the money's been spent, not banked.
Of course. And it's like, right, well, we've got to look at... An insolvency practitioner going to look at really three things. The first one, do they have a right to act? Is there a director's loan account, yes or no? Okay. Yeah. But number two is... Well, is there any hope of recovering anything off this guy or girl? If you are in a rented accommodation with very little disposable income, it gets written off. It really does. There are some firms that will scare you and threaten you, but I know if you can show that there's nothing here, that will get written off. Okay. If you're in £1 million pub with no mortgage, you've got a big problem. If you've got stuff, this is really difficult to deal with. Because an insolvency practitioner can do a discount, they can do a negotiated settlement, they have a discretion to do it. Now this is where, as a director, you need to get educated. Because as I think you're finding out is, once you've appointed an insolvency practitioner, they've got no real desire to do a discount. Why would they? No. People, it's a strange dynamic in insolvency. So if I want an accountant, I want them to represent me, my best interest, same as a solicitor. Yeah. When it's insolvency, you're going out there to find somebody to represent the other side. That is strange, that.
Yeah.
So you want to go, my advice to people out there who've got these directors' loan accounts, I think you should work with an independent firm, okay? I'm not here to big me up. Go and find out about me. I'm really good, right?
Love that.
Yeah, but do your own... listen, if you're going for insolvency, you better go out there and check reviews. You better go out there and due diligence. You'll find me anyway, right? But if you don't like four-eyed specs from the north of England who support Preston, I get it, right? You need to find an independent. And you need to find someone who's going to be willing to put a bit of effort in before you pay them to work out what the director's loan is and how it's going to be settled.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because you've got to remember is before you appoint an insolvency practitioner, they've not earned a penny. And they're all... these big firms that get bank jobs or like you was forced to use a specific firm because of your insurance, which I want to have a chat about. These smaller firms want your work. Now they're never going to break any rules. They've all stuck. They've all got the same Insolvency Act to follow. But you can negotiate better with them, And again, it's about even if you've got equity in your property. I get excited talking about this because this causes so many problems.
It saves lives, though, mate. It really does.
If you've got when we're getting a deal done on your behalf for a director's loan account, the insolvency practitioner needs to justify to the creditors, to the Insolvency Practitioners Association, to the Insolvency Service, that this discounted settlement is a better realisation,
best case scenario,
than a bankruptcy.
Yes. Yeah.
So people don't realise in bankruptcy is there's a hell of a lot of costs. I mean, let's just talk about easy numbers. Let's say you've got an £500,000 house, right? Well, in a forced sale valuation, that's probably worth 450. Okay, there's probably 10 grand to sell a house in estate agents' fees and solicitors' fees, all coming out of the pot. So, and then you've got your mortgage. So let's do a real life example. Okay, a £500,000 house with a 300 grand mortgage. Okay, you think you've got 200 grand equity in. I might need a phone to do these calculations. Right? Yeah. So, in a forced sale, it's worth 450. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Leaves you with 150 in the pot.
With 150.
Yeah.
But half of it's your missus, right?
Yeah.
So they can't, as long as she's a director, can't touch your missus's share.
Yeah.
So we're left with 75 grand. Okay. Yeah. Well, in a bankruptcy, you've got a trustee and bankruptcy's cost. Okay. You've got the official receiver's cost. Right. Take off 7 grand for the official receiver.
Okay.
Now, the trustee in bankruptcy, they could probably take another 15, maybe 20 grand in fees.
Right.
Okay? There'd be $2,500 to get you, make you bankrupt, the petitioning creditors cost. How much have we got there?
45 and a half.
45.
Left.
A solicitor, right? A solicitor could, if you buried your head in the sand and were very difficult, there could be 30 grand's worth of legal fees on there.
Yeah.
Okay? Where are we at now? 15 grand?
15 and a half, yeah.
And the insolvency practitioner's got to get paid. And as you know...
Take your 6.5, 7 grand, whatever they want to charge.
Well, that's just your liquidation fees.
Oh, okay,
If they've been chasing you for a few years on a director's loan account, 20 grand. 20, 30 grand maybe.
Yeah.
So, even though you started off with, I've got 200 grand in my house...
Yeah.
When we get...
You're barely getting 5 out of you.
When we get down to it, right... So you've got to use that information. There is a bankruptcy calculator that you can go to an insolvency practitioner and go, listen, if you make me bankrupt, that is what you're getting. And what I'm offering
Good luck to you.
What I'm offering you is, listen, generally an insolvency practitioner will give you 2 options, and they'll go, if you've got a lump sum payment, we will give you a discount on that benefit, but we want it now. If you need some, people want cases closed in 12 months. If you need some terms over 12 months, you know, it'll be higher. If you enter into an agreement to repay a director's loan account and you don't stick to it, they'll rip the agreement off and they'll come for the full amount. Like, they can put charges on your house. Yeah. It's if you're struggling with a director's loan account, you think you've got one, you think you're hurtling into insolvency, that is a time to pick the phone up.
Yeah.
Like, literally, and you get somebody to help you understand the position and how you're going to deal with it.
So this is really interesting, because actually the insolvency or the liquidator that we're using, or we were made to use via the insurance company, they kind of skirted over the DLA. And they absolutely skirted over the personal guaranteed loan and stuff like that. It was sort of like, oh, we don't know about that. Anyway, oh no, we'll come back to that. Of
course.
And there was a couple of occasions where, because we had intercompany stuff and whatever, it's nuts, because you look back and you think, what a prick for the way he did it. But, you know, stuff like, so was there any money moved into company? You know, was there any, how much time did you spend on this other company? And was there any other, and like, you know, just give me a figure, approximately how much. And my business partner was like, I'd say probably about 100 grand. He's like, right, 100 grand. And he's write that down. And then later on, it's all come out, and then they're like, okay, so this company owes this company 100 grand. And I'm like, the fuck did you get that figure from? Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys mentioned it. No, we didn't. Like, do you know what I mean?
Listen, and sort of in the defence, right? Okay, I mean, let's not name them, right? You know what I mean? Absolutely. I know who they are. You know who they are, right? Yeah. So in their defence, an insolvency practitioner, they could say, we're not willing to do any work on this until you've paid some fees, right? Yeah. Okay, I get that. But if that's the position of the insolvency practitioner you're speaking to, I would suggest you find someone else. Yeah. Because what I do is I go, right, let's get... I mean, I used to lose jobs, right, because they've been quoted 5 grand. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And actually, people go, what's the cost to liquidate? Okay, well, you liquidate for 5 grand. That's not the important thing. It really isn't. Yeah. You know, I said at the start, the problem is people don't know what questions to ask. It's like,
what's the cost? Shouldn't even come into this at this point.
Not if you. I mean, listen. If you got, like I say, you've not got a pot of piss in or windows to throw it out of, right? Yeah, listen. Go out there, get the cheapest liquidator, right? Okay. If you've got something to lose, mm-hmm. you are not. The cost of the insolvency is not the important thing.
That's not going to be the thing that makes or breaks anything.
Because I know firms who know when there's a director's loan account, because we all know, I know within 30 seconds of someone going, I go, what's your company called? And I pull it up on Company's House, and I know if there's a director's loan account, or I suspect, right? Mm-hmm. So if I know, everybody knows, right? I'm not the brightest guy in insolvency, I can assure you, okay? So what I'll do is I'll stop and I'll go, right, listen, we need to figure this out. We need to understand this, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And by the time you make it, when I ask for some money, right, you're going to understand your problem, the solution, if there is one,
Mm-hmm.
and how much everything's going to cost you. What used to happen to me doesn't so much now because we're fairly well known. But I'd get a director on the phone, and the first thing he says to me is, "What's the cost to liquidate?" And I'm like, "Mate, I mean, I just say, listen, you're not my client anymore."
Yeah.
I says, "You're going to get your legs blown off in this." And I'd go through it, and I'd come back to him. I'd go, "Listen," and I do all the work. I'm like, "Right, well, what are your assets and liabilities? What is your income and expenditure?" I then speak to one of the IPs and go, "Right, listen, where are we at?"
Yeah,
with
what
this?
have we got here? Yeah.
And I'll go back and I'll say, "Right, it's going to cost you, if you've got 30 grand up front, it's going to cost you 30. If you need terms, you're going to have to pay 38. Well, I've been quoted 6 grand. Okay, I said, okay. I says, they're not telling you the truth. He says, but they've told me it's not a problem. I says, I know. I says, but I promise you, you're making a mistake. Well, you've heard that you can lead a horse to water, right?
Yeah.
The amount of times I have had calls, and I used to spend a lot of time with these people. They ring me back, and it's obviously gone to shit. And I just say, "Nah, sir, I can't help you. I cannot help you. I were there to help you 6 months ago, and I never billed you, right? It's your own fault."
Yeah.
And that's the heartbreaking thing is some firms they know this problem. They know why are they not saying on day one? Why? Because most directors, they're in that corner that we talked about. I want this. I've got toothache. I've pulled the bloody tooth out. And they sign up, they pay the money, and then the shit starts to come. Yeah. Bad stuff, man.
Yeah, it's not right. No, absolutely. Yeah. You got me thinking of a couple of bits there as well. Okay, no, fair. Look, this has been really, really extensive. I think I'd love to do a follow-up with you on this one because there's a lot more I think we still need to cover off. But if I was to put you on the spot and be like, right, best advice you could give to business owners in the recruitment space right now who think they might have a problem or have a problem.
Okay, pick the phone up. Pick the phone up. Director first. We offer free, independent, impartial advice. If you don't like me, pick the phone up to someone else. but like, check the reviews out. There are some firms like me that have got lots of good reviews.
Yeah.
And have an honest conversation with what the problems are, but also what you're worried about. Because people think that the insolvency practitioner won't. They're like bloodhounds. They're there to find problems. If there's anything you're unsure of, anything that you're worried about, it needs to come out up front before you make a decision. And most people, it's not as bad as they think. It's like in 99% of cases, it's not as bad as you think. But just take it. If there's anything I've said that's resonated with you've got a problem. Yeah. You've got a problem.
Yeah, if you've gone this...
I don't know how long we've been talking. If they're still watching this, you've got a problem.
Yeah, you need to get on the phone.
Yeah.
No, mate, this has been really, really good. Genuinely, I appreciate you making the journey. And
I've enjoyed it.
Mate,
God bless you, mate.
Honestly, thank you so much. Guys, that's it for another episode of RecTalk. We'll see you again on the next one. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and all the cool shit you guys do to keep us number one. Thank you very much. See you again.